The fluorescent lights in the pawn shop buzzed overhead, casting a harsh yellow glow on everything. Lily stood at the counter, her hands trembling as she held her 3-month-old daughter Sophie closer to her chest. The baby was crying again, that weak, tired cry that broke Lily's heart more than the hungry wails from weeks ago. At least when Sophie cried with energy, Lily knew she still had fight in her. Now the cries were getting softer, and that terrified her. "Let me see it again," the pawn shop owner said, squinting at the simple gold band Lily had placed on the scratched glass counter. He was an older man with reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck, and he'd seen hundreds of desperate people walk through his doors. But something about the young mother in front of him made even his weathered heart ache a little. Lily swallowed hard and shifted Sophie to her other arm. The baby had barely any weight to her anymore. 3 months old, and she should have been getting chubby, growing those adorable rolls on her thighs and double chins that made everyone coo. Instead, Sophie was thin, her little face pinched with hunger that Lily couldn't satisfy. The last container of formula had run out yesterday morning. Since then, Lily had been mixing what little powder remained with more and more water, trying to stretch it, knowing it wasn't enough. The ring sat between them like a tiny golden surrender flag. It was the last thing Lily owned that had any value. Everything else was already gone. The small television she'd bought from her first paycheck sold 2 months ago. The laptop her mother had given her for college graduation, pawned 6 weeks back. Her grandmother's silver necklace, the one family heirloom she'd promised herself she'd never part with, gone 3 weeks ago when the electricity bill came due. "I can give you 200, the owner said finally, setting the ring down. "It's not much gold and the market's down right now. $200. Lily did the math in her head, the same desperate calculation she'd been doing for weeks. Formula was $30 a container. Sophie went through one every 4 days. Diapers. Another $40 for a box that lasted maybe a week if she was careful. If she changed Sophie only when absolutely necessary, that meant $200 would buy her maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks before she'd be right back here with nothing left to sell. "Okay," Lily whispered, her voice cracking. "Okay, I'll take it." But even as she said it, her hand moved to touch the ring one more time. She remembered the day Ryan had slipped it onto her finger. They'd been so happy then, so stupidly, innocently happy. He'd taken her to a quiet park by the river, nothing fancy because neither of them had money back then. He was still in graduate school, working toward his business degree, and she was working 2 jobs while finishing her accounting certification. "I know it's not much," he'd said, almost apologetic as he showed her the simple gold band. "But I promise you, Lily, one day I'll replace this with something beautiful. One day I'll give you everything." She'd cried then too, but for completely different reasons. "I don't want everything," she'd told him. "I just want you." That was 2.5 years ago, before everything fell apart, before she overheard that conversation at his office party, the one that shattered her world. Before she left without explanation, too hurt and proud to confront him. Before she discovered she was pregnant a week after walking out of his life. Sophie whimpered again, pulling Lily back to the present. The baby's face was flushed, her forehead warm against Lily's neck. "Please don't get sick," Lily prayed silently. She couldn't afford a doctor. She'd lost her health insurance when she lost her job at the small accounting firm 3 months ago. The timing couldn't have been worse, getting laid off right after having Sophie. They'd said it was budget cuts, but Lily knew the truth. Her boss hadn't liked how much time she needed for doctor appointments during her pregnancy, hadn't liked the idea of maternity leave, even the unpaid kind. "You sure about this?" the pawnshop owner asked, and there was something almost gentle in his voice. "Wedding rings, they're hard to get back. People always say they'll come back for them, but—" "I'm sure," Lily said quickly before she could change her mind. What use was a ring anyway? What use were memories when your baby was hungry? The owner nodded slowly and turned to his register. That's when the bell above the door chimed and a voice cut through the stale air of the shop. "Don't sell that ring." Lily froze. She knew that voice. She'd know it anywhere. Had heard it in her dreams for 2 years, and her nightmares too. Slowly she turned around. Ryan stood in the doorway, and for a moment neither of them moved. He looked different. His hair was shorter, more styled. His suit probably cost more than her entire month's rent used to cost. He'd made it, she realized. All those dreams he'd talked about, all those plans, he'd actually done it. The struggling graduate student was gone, replaced by someone who looked like he belonged in boardrooms and corner offices. His eyes went from her face to the baby in her arms, and Lily watched the confusion cross his features. Then she saw the exact moment when recognition hit him. His face went pale, his eyes widening as he stared at Sophie. The baby chose that moment to turn her head, her tiny face visible to him for the first time. Sophie had his eyes. Everyone said babies all looked the same, but there was no denying those eyes, that specific shade, that same shape. She had his chin, too, that slight cleft that made dimples when he smiled. Lily. Ryan breathed, and his voice was rough, shocked. Is she? We need to leave, Lily said quickly, panic rising in her chest. She grabbed for the ring on the counter, but Ryan moved faster. His hand covered hers, and the touch sent electricity through her entire arm. Muscle memory from a time when his touch meant safety, meant home. Please, she whispered, and she hated how desperate she sounded. Please just let me do this and go. How old is she? Ryan asked, his eyes still locked on Sophie. Lily didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat had closed up completely. Lily, how old is that baby? His voice was harder now, demanding. 3 months. She finally managed. She watched him do the math. The same math she'd done when she saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test. His jaw clenched, his hand tightening over hers on the counter. You were going to sell your wedding ring for formula, he said slowly, and it wasn't a question. His eyes had caught the container of baby formula on the counter, the one she'd been planning to buy the moment she got the cash. How long, Lily? How long have you been struggling like this? That's none of your business anymore, she said, trying to pull her hand away. But he wouldn't let go. I have a daughter, Ryan said, and his voice cracked on the word. You kept my daughter from me, and now you're standing in a pawn shop trying to sell the ring I gave you so you can feed her. I'd say that's very much my business. The pawn shop owner cleared his throat uncomfortably. Look, folks, maybe you should take this outside. But neither of them moved. They stood there, hands still touching over the ring, a baby between them, and 2 years of silence that suddenly felt like a canyon neither knew how to cross. The street outside the pawn shop was busy with afternoon traffic, but Lily barely noticed. She'd practically run out of the store, clutching Sophie against her chest, the ring still on the counter behind her. Ryan had followed immediately, his footsteps heavy on the pavement as he caught up to her. Lily, stop. Please just stop and talk to me. She kept walking, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. Not here, not in front of him. She'd cried enough over Ryan Chen, and she'd promised herself she was done with that. I said stop. His hand caught her elbow, gentle but firm, and the touch made her spin around. Don't, she said, her voice shaking. Don't you dare act like you have any right to stop me. You have no idea what my life has been like. Then tell me. Ryan's composure was cracking now, his perfect CEO facade slipping. Tell me why you disappeared 2 years ago without a word. Tell me why I came home one day and you were just gone. Tell me why you're standing in a pawn shop selling your wedding ring instead of asking me for help. Because I heard you. The words exploded out of her before she could stop them. I heard what you said about me, about people like me. Did you really think I'd stay after that? Ryan's face went blank with confusion. What are you talking about? I never said anything about you. At your office party, Lily said, and the memory still stung like fresh acid. 2 years ago, right before I left. I came to surprise you with dinner because you'd been working so late. I heard you talking with James in the conference room. She watched his face, waiting for recognition, for guilt, for something. But he just looked more confused. James said you'd never marry someone like me. Lily continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. And you agreed with him? You said you'd never marry someone like that. I was standing right outside the door, Ryan. I heard everything. Sophie started crying harder now, her weak wails cutting through the street noise. Lily bounced her automatically, but the baby was beyond soothing. She was hungry, tired, and probably picking up on all the tension radiating from her mother. Ryan's eyes widened with something like horror. Lily, no. No, that's not what happened. I know what I heard. You heard part of a conversation, Ryan said urgently, stepping closer. James wasn't talking about you. He was talking about his ex-girlfriend, the one who only dated him because his family had money. He asked if I'd ever marry someone like that, someone who only wanted me for what I could provide. And I said no, I'd never marry someone like that because I was already planning to marry you. Lily felt the world tilt slightly. What? I had a ring. Ryan said, and his voice was rough with emotion. A custom ring I'd been designing for 3 months. I was going to propose to you that weekend. We were going to drive to the coast, remember? You'd been talking about wanting to see the ocean. I had the whole thing planned, the ocean. She remembered. She'd mentioned it once casually, saying she'd never seen it. Ryan had immediately started planning a weekend trip, but she'd left before it could happen. She'd packed her things while he was at work, left her key on the kitchen counter, and moved in with her friend Rachel. When Ryan had called, she hadn't answered. When he'd shown up at Rachel's apartment, she'd refused to see him. Eventually, he'd stopped trying. "You're lying," she said, but there was no conviction in her voice. "I'm not," Ryan said firmly. "And if you'd given me 5 minutes, if you'd asked me one question before disappearing from my life, you would have known that." Sophie's cries turned into weak coughs, and suddenly the baby felt warmer in Lily's arms. Too warm. She pressed her lips to Sophie's forehead and felt her heart drop. Fever. Sophie had a fever. "No, no, no," Lily whispered, panic overriding everything else. "Not now, baby. Please, not now." Ryan was beside her in an instant. "What's wrong?" "She's burning up. She's sick." Lily's hands were shaking as she tried to remember what the free clinic had told her about fevers in babies. Was it dangerous? When was it dangerous? She couldn't remember, couldn't think. "My car's right here," Ryan said, already guiding her toward a sleek black sedan parked at the curb. "We're taking her to the hospital." "I can't afford a hospital," Lily said automatically, even as she let him lead her to the car. "I don't have insurance." "I don't care," Ryan said, opening the back door. "Get in." The drive to the hospital was a blur. Ryan drove fast but smooth, one hand on the wheel while he made calls on his phone. Lily heard words like priority and private room and best pediatrician, but she couldn't focus on anything except Sophie's labored breathing. At the emergency room, things moved quickly. Too quickly. A nurse took Sophie from her arms, and Lily almost fought her until Ryan's hand on her shoulder steadied her. "They need to examine her," he said quietly. "You have to let them help her." A doctor came, then another. There were questions Lily could barely answer. How long had Sophie had a fever? When did she last eat? Was she up to date on her vaccinations? That last question made Lily want to sink through the floor. Sophie had missed her 2-month checkup because Lily couldn't afford the copay. After what felt like hours but was probably only 40 minutes, a doctor emerged from the examination room. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that somehow made everything worse. "Sophie has a respiratory infection," the doctor explained, leading them to a small consultation room. "It's not immediately life-threatening, but it's serious. She's also showing signs of malnutrition." The word hit Lily like a punch. Malnutrition. Her baby was malnourished because she couldn't afford enough formula. "We need to admit her for at least 24 hours, the doctor continued. "Get some fluids in her, monitor her breathing, make sure the antibiotics are working. She's a fighter, though. With proper treatment and nutrition, she should recover well." Lily nodded numbly. She couldn't speak. Couldn't process the relief mixed with crushing guilt. "I'll handle everything," Ryan said to the doctor, and his voice had that CEO tone now, the one that said he was used to solving problems. "Whatever she needs, whatever the cost." The doctor nodded and left them alone. The small room felt suffocating suddenly. The walls too close, the air too thick. "This is my fault," Lily whispered. "I did this to her." "Stop," Ryan said firmly. "This isn't your fault. You were doing the best you could. My best wasn't good enough." The tears finally came, hot and angry and full of months of suppressed fear. "I couldn't feed my own baby. What kind of mother can't feed her baby?" Ryan pulled her into his arms before she could protest, and she was too tired, too broken to resist. She collapsed against him, sobbing into his expensive suit, not caring that people could probably hear her through the thin walls. "Why didn't you tell me?" Ryan asked into her hair. "When you found out you were pregnant, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought you didn't want me," Lily said, her voice muffled against his chest. "I thought I was just some poor girl you were embarrassed by. I didn't want you to feel obligated to stay with me just because of a baby." "Obligated?" Ryan pulled back to look at her, and there were tears in his eyes too. "Lily, I loved you. I loved you so much I couldn't breathe when you left. I spent months looking for you. Your friend Rachel wouldn't tell me where you were. You blocked my number. It was like you'd vanished. I was scared," Lily admitted, "and hurt, and too proud to come back. And too proud to ask for help when you needed it." Ryan added, but there was no accusation in his voice. Just sadness. A nurse knocked on the door. Mr. Chen, Sophie's room is ready. You can come stay with her now. They walked together to the pediatric ward, neither speaking. Sophie was already in a crib. An IV in her tiny hand, monitors beeping softly beside her. She looked so small, so fragile in that big hospital bed. I'm staying, Lily said immediately, pulling a chair close to the crib. We're both staying, Ryan corrected quietly. And for the first time in 2 years, they sat together in silence, watching their daughter sleep. The hospital kept Sophie for 2 nights instead of 1. The doctors wanted to be sure her breathing was stable, that she was gaining weight properly with the formula and nutrients they were giving her through the IV. Lily barely left the room, surviving on terrible hospital coffee and whatever food Ryan brought her. On the second night, while Sophie slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, Ryan finally asked the question Lily had been dreading. Where have you been living? Lily stared at her hands. A studio apartment on the east side, near the old factory district. She watched Ryan's jaw tighten. He knew that area. Everyone did. It was where people went when they had no other options, where buildings should have been condemned years ago, but landlords kept renting them out anyway. What's the heat situation? He asked quietly. There's a radiator, Lily said, which wasn't exactly a lie. There was a radiator. It just didn't work most of the time. Lily, it's fine, she insisted. We manage. Your daughter got sick because of cold exposure, Ryan said, his voice tight with controlled anger. The doctor told me. Baby Sophie's age can't regulate their body temperature well. And if they're in a cold environment for too long, especially if they're already weak from not eating enough. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I didn't have a choice, Lily said, and she hated how defensive she sounded. Do you think I wanted to live there? Do you think I wanted any of this? You had a choice, Ryan said, and now his frustration was showing. You could have told me. I would have helped. I would have done anything. I couldn't, Lily said, and her voice broke. I thought you didn't want me, Ryan. How was I supposed to show up pregnant asking for help from someone who I thought was ashamed of me? Ryan stood up and paced to the window, his hands shoved in his pockets. Outside, the city lights sparkled in the darkness, completely indifferent to the drama playing out in this small hospital room. I need to tell you something, he said finally, not turning around. That weekend I was going to propose. After you left, I still went to the coast. I took the ring with me. I sat on the beach and called your number probably 50 times. You never answered. Lily's throat tightened. I kept that ring, Ryan continued. For a year I kept it, thinking maybe you'd come back. Maybe you'd call. Maybe I'd run into you somewhere and I'd get a chance to ask you why. When you never did, I threw myself into work. Built my company from nothing. Worked 18-hour days, made all the money I'd promised you I'd make someday. And you know what? None of it mattered because you weren't there. Ryan, Lily whispered, but she didn't know what else to say. He turned around and the look on his face was raw. When I saw you in that pawn shop today, for 1 second I was happy. Just pure stupid happy because you were alive and real and standing in front of me. Then I saw the baby and I realized how much I'd missed. 3 months of her life, Lily. Her birth, her first smile, every single first. I can't get that back. The guilt that had been sitting in Lily's chest since the moment Ryan appeared felt like it might crush her completely. I know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. A nurse came in to check Sophie's vitals, breaking the tension. They both fell silent, watching the nurse work efficiently, noting numbers on a chart, adjusting the IV drip slightly. She's doing much better, the nurse said with a warm smile. Doctor says if she keeps improving like this, you can probably take her home tomorrow. After the nurse left, the word home hung in the air between them like a challenge. You're not going back to that apartment, Ryan said, and it wasn't a question. Excuse me? I have a guest house on my property, Ryan continued, his tone shifting into something more businesslike, like he was negotiating a deal. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, completely separate from the main house. You and Sophie can stay there. I'm not a charity case, Lily said immediately. This isn't charity. This is me taking care of my daughter. I can take care of her. Really? Ryan's voice was sharp now. Because from where I'm standing, you were about to sell your wedding ring for formula. You were living in a place so cold it made my daughter sick. So forgive me if I don't trust your judgment right now. The words stung because they were true. Lily looked at Sophie, sleeping peacefully with color back in her cheeks, and felt something inside her crumble. If I don't agree, she asked quietly. Ryan's expression was grim. Then I'll file for custody. And Lily, I will win. I have resources, lawyers, a stable home. What do you have? It felt like a slap, even though he was right. What did she have? An apartment with broken heating, no job, no savings. No way to provide the life Sophie deserved. That's not fair, she said, blinking back tears. Nothing about this situation is fair, Ryan replied, but his voice softened slightly. I missed the birth of my daughter because of a misunderstanding. You've been struggling alone for months because of the same misunderstanding. Sophie got sick because neither of us knew how to talk to each other. So no, nothing is fair. But I'm trying to fix what I can. Lily was quiet for a long moment, watching Sophie's little chest rise and fall with each breath. The monitors beeped steadily, a sound that had become oddly comforting over the past 2 days. How long? She finally asked. What? How long would we stay? In the guest house, Ryan seemed to consider this carefully. As long as you need. Until you get back on your feet. Until we figure out what comes next. I don't want your money, Lily said firmly. I'll get a job. I'll pay you rent. Fine, Ryan agreed. Get a job. But you're not paying rent. That's not negotiable. Ryan, my daughter lives there, he interrupted. I'm not taking rent money for housing my own child. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. Lily knew she didn't really have a choice, not if she wanted what was best for Sophie. And wasn't that what mattered? Not her pride, not her fear, but her daughter's well-being. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, we'll stay. But this is temporary, just until I get back on my feet. Temporary, Ryan agreed, though something in his expression suggested he had other plans. The next morning, a social worker came by before Sophie's discharge. It was standard procedure, she explained, when a child showed signs of malnutrition. She asked questions, lots of them, and Lily answered as honestly as she could. She watched the woman make notes, watched her glance between Ryan in his expensive suit and Lily in her worn clothes that she'd been wearing for 3 days straight. I'm satisfied that Sophie will be going to a safe environment, the social worker finally said, looking mostly at Ryan when she spoke. Mr. Chen, I trust you'll ensure Sophie receives proper nutrition and medical care going forward. Absolutely, Ryan said firmly. The woman barely looked at Lily as she left, and somehow that felt worse than any judgment she could have spoken out loud. The ride to Ryan's house was quiet. Sophie was strapped into a brand new car seat that Ryan had somehow acquired overnight, along with bags of baby supplies, formula, diapers, everything they'd need. Lily watched the city change outside her window. The buildings getting nicer, the streets cleaner, until they pulled through a gate into a neighborhood she'd only ever seen in magazines. The main house was beautiful, all modern glass and clean lines. The guest house sat behind it, smaller but still nicer than anywhere Lily had ever lived. I had my assistant stock the kitchen, Ryan said, unlocking the door. If you need anything else, just let me know. Inside, everything was perfect. Tasteful furniture, soft carpets, a nursery already set up in the second bedroom with a crib and changing table. Lily set Sophie's carrier down and just stood there overwhelmed. The main house is just across the garden, Ryan said, pointing through the window. If you need anything day or night, call me. He handed her a phone. New top of the line. I can't accept this, Lily started. It's not for you, it's for Sophie, Ryan said. If there's an emergency, you need to be able to reach me. He was already leaving, giving her space. And Lily felt a confusing mix of relief and loneliness as the door closed behind him. That night, after feeding Sophie and putting her down in the new crib, Lily stood at the window looking across at the main house. She could see lights on inside, could imagine Ryan in there, probably working late like he always did. They were 30 feet apart, but it might as well have been miles. The same distance they'd been living with for 2 years. Close enough to matter, too far to touch. 3 weeks passed in the guest house, and Lily was starting to feel almost human again. Sophie was thriving, gaining weight, sleeping better, smiling more. The pediatrician Ryan had found, the best in the city apparently, said Sophie was right on track developmentally now. Every time Lily looked at her daughter's healthy, happy face, she felt the tight knot of fear in her chest loosen just a little more. But living so close to Ryan was harder than she'd expected. He came by every morning before work, always knocking softly, always asking permission before entering. He'd spend 20 minutes with Sophie, talking to her in a gentle voice that made Lily's heart ache, making her giggle with silly faces. Then he'd leave for his office, and Lily would spend the day trying not to think about him. In the evenings, he'd return around 7, usually with takeout because he'd noticed Lily barely cooked for herself. They'd eat together awkwardly, making small talk about Sophie, carefully avoiding anything deeper. Then he'd give Sophie her bath, something he'd insisted on doing. And Lily would watch from the doorway as he sang old lullabies she hadn't heard in years. "My grandmother used to sing that one," she said one evening, unable to help herself. Ryan looked up, water dripping from his hands as he gently washed Sophie's tiny feet. "I remember. You sang it once, months after we'd started dating. I asked you what it was, and you told me about your grandmother, how she raised you after your parents died." Lily had forgotten she'd told him that, forgotten how much she'd shared with him back when she'd believed in them. "I looked up the words," Ryan continued, focusing back on Sophie. "Learned the whole song. I thought maybe one day we'd sing it to our kids together." The casual mention of our kids made something twist in Lily's stomach. That future they'd imagined felt like it belonged to different people now. "Ryan," she started, but he cut her off. "I know. I'm not trying to make this harder. I just wanted you to know I remembered." After he left that night, Lily couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about all the little things he remembered, all the ways he showed up every single day. It would be easier if he was cold or distant. Instead, he was exactly the man she'd fallen in love with, and that terrified her. The next morning, Lily got a call from a contact Ryan had connected her with. Jennifer Harris ran an accounting firm downtown and needed someone who could start immediately. "Ryan spoke highly of your qualifications," Jennifer said over the phone, her voice warm but professional. "Can you come in for an interview tomorrow?" Lily's heart raced. A real job. A chance to get back on her feet. Yes, absolutely. "Thank you so much." She got the job. The pay was good, better than her last position, and Jennifer was understanding about Sophie, even helping Lily find an affordable daycare nearby. For the first time in months, Lily felt like maybe she could actually do this, could actually build a stable life. Ryan congratulated her with genuine happiness in his eyes, but there was something else there too. Something that looked almost like sadness. 2 weeks into her new job, Lily came home to find an envelope on her doorstep. Inside was a legal document. Her heart sank as she read the first line, "Petition for Custody Agreement." Her hands shook as she read through it. Ryan was proposing joint custody, 50-50, with Sophie spending half the week with each parent. Everything was laid out clearly, professionally, including child support payments that made Lily's eyes widen. She marched across the garden to the main house without thinking, still holding the papers, and pounded on the door. Ryan answered, loosening his tie, clearly just home from work. "Lily, what's wrong?" "What is this?" She shoved the papers at him. "It's a custody agreement. I had my lawyer draw it up. It's fair to both of us." "Fair? You're trying to take her from me half the time?" "She's my daughter too," Ryan said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm not trying to take her away. I'm trying to establish something legal, something stable for all of us." "I don't want your money," Lily said, pointing at the child support amount. "I told you I'd handle this myself." "The money isn't negotiable. Sophie deserves support from both her parents. This isn't about you or me, it's about her." Lily felt tears of frustration building. "Why are you doing this now?" "Things were working. We had a routine." "Because you're getting back on your feet," Ryan said quietly. "Because eventually you're going to move out of the guest house, and when you do, I need to know I still get to see my daughter. I need something in writing." The words hit her like cold water. He was right. She had been planning to move out once she saved enough for a deposit on a decent apartment. She'd been planning to take Sophie and finally be independent again. But she hadn't thought about what that meant for Ryan. "I wouldn't keep her from you," Lily said, but even as she said it, she knew how hollow it sounded. She'd already kept Sophie from him for 3 months. "I need more than your word, Lily. I need something legal. Sign the papers, please." She looked down at the document, at the careful legal language that would bind them together as co-parents for the next 18 years. It felt so final, so permanent. "Can I think about it?" she asked quietly. "Take all the time you need," Ryan said. "But I'm not backing down on this." That weekend, Lily's old landlord called. Or rather, his lawyer called. They were suing her for 3 months of back rent plus damages to the apartment. $8,000 she didn't have. Lily sat on her bed staring at the lawsuit papers, feeling the walls close in again. She'd just started to breathe, just started to believe things might work out, and now this. There was a knock on the door. Ryan stood there with Sophie in his arms, having picked her up from daycare like he did every Friday. "She missed you," he said, handing over the baby. Then he noticed Lily's face. "What happened?" "Nothing. It's fine." Lily. She handed him the lawsuit without a word, watched his expression darken as he read through it. "I'll take care of this," he said immediately. "No. Lily, $8,000 could ruin everything you've built. Let me handle it." "I don't want you solving all my problems," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't you see? If you keep fixing everything, keep saving me, then what am I? Just someone who couldn't make it without you?" "You're the mother of my child," Ryan said firmly. "You're someone who got dealt a bad hand and did her best with it. There's no shame in accepting help." "There is when it comes from you," Lily whispered. "Because it's not just help, Ryan. Every time you show up, every time you sing to Sophie, every time you remember some tiny thing I told you years ago, it makes me remember why I loved you. And I can't do this. I can't fall for you again just because I need you." The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan stared at her and she watched emotions flicker across his face, too fast to name. "What if I need you too?" he finally said, his voice rough. "Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Do you think the last 2 years were easy for me? Do you think I didn't wake up every single day wishing you'd walk back through my door? Ryan, please." "I still have the ring, Lily, the one I was going to propose with. It's in my bedroom, in the top drawer of my dresser. I look at it sometimes and wonder what would have happened if you'd just talked to me that day instead of running." "I can't do this right now," Lily said, clutching Sophie closer. "I need to figure out my life. I need to stand on my own feet." Ryan nodded slowly, his jaw tight. "Fine, but I'm still handling the lawsuit, not because you need saving, but because that apartment was a trap and you deserve better. Consider it back child support for the months I didn't know Sophie existed." He left before she could argue, and Lily sank onto the couch, Sophie babbling happily in her arms, completely unaware of the chaos in her mother's heart. The next morning, Lily found another envelope on her doorstep. Inside was her wedding ring, the simple gold band she'd almost sold in the pawn shop, along with a note in Ryan's handwriting. "I went back for this the same day. You might not be ready to wear it again, but it belongs to you, not sitting in some pawn shop. You never have to sell pieces of yourself to survive. Not anymore." Lily held the ring up to the light, watching it catch the morning sun, and finally let herself cry. 6 months later, Lily stood in her small office at the accounting firm, looking at the promotion letter Jennifer had just handed her. Senior accountant, a substantial raise, benefits that included full health coverage for her and Sophie. Everything she'd worked so hard to rebuild. "You've earned this," Jennifer said with a genuine smile. "You're one of the best hires I've ever made." Lily should have been thrilled. Instead, all she could think about was the apartment listings she'd been browsing that morning. With this new salary, she could finally afford a nice 2-bedroom place. She could move out of the guest house. She could prove to herself and to Ryan that she could stand on her own. So why did the thought make her feel hollow inside? That evening, she found Ryan in the garden between their houses, pushing Sophie on the baby swing he'd installed last month. Sophie was squealing with delight, her little legs kicking excitedly every time she went up in the air. "Higher, princess?" Ryan asked, his voice full of affection. "You want to touch the clouds?" Sophie babbled something that sounded like agreement, and Ryan laughed. That laugh did something to Lily's chest, made it tight and warm at the same time. "She's getting so big," Lily said, announcing her presence. Ryan turned, his smile softening when he saw her. "She is. Hard to believe she's 9 months old now. Feels like yesterday we were in that hospital." "I got promoted today," Lily said, not sure why she was telling him. Maybe because he was the only person who truly understood how far she'd come. Ryan's face lit up. "Lily, that's amazing. Congratulations, we should celebrate. Let me take you both to dinner. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something." Something in her tone made Ryan's expression shift. He lifted Sophie out of the swing and held her against his chest protectively, like he already knew he wasn't going to like what came next. "I've been looking at apartments," Lily said. "With the new salary, I can afford a really nice place. 2 bedrooms, good neighborhood, close to Sophie's daycare." "You want to move out," Ryan said flatly. "I think it's time. We always said this was temporary, and it's been 6 months. I've got my job, my savings built back up. I can do this now." "Right," Ryan said, and his voice was carefully neutral. When were you thinking? Maybe next month? I found a place that's available on the 1st. Ryan nodded slowly, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. Sophie reached for his face, patting his cheek with her tiny hand, and he managed to smile for her even though it didn't reach his eyes. We should probably review the custody agreement then, he said. Figure out the logistics of moving Sophie back and forth. Yeah, Lily agreed, though the word felt like swallowing glass. That makes sense. The next few weeks were strange. Ryan was still present, still showed up every day, but there was a distance now. They were polite, cordial, like friendly strangers coordinating schedules. He didn't stay for dinner anymore. Didn't linger after Sophie's bath time. He was giving her the space she'd asked for, and Lily hated it. She signed the lease on the new apartment, bought furniture, started packing boxes, and with each box she filled, the knot in her stomach grew tighter. 3 days before the move, Lily's supervisor called her into the office. There was a problem with one of their major clients, a mess in their books that dated back years. They needed someone to go through everything, figure out what went wrong. It's a huge project, Jennifer explained. Could take weeks of long hours. I hate to ask, but you're the only one I trust with something this complex. Lily thought of Sophie, of the carefully coordinated custody schedule she and Ryan had finally worked out. Thought of being a single mom trying to manage overtime and daycare pickups and everything else. I'll do it, she said, because that's what she did now. She handled things. She didn't back down from challenges. That night, while packing Sophie's toys, Lily found a box she'd forgotten about. Inside were photos from her time with Ryan, things she'd shoved away when she left. There was a picture of them at a park, Ryan's arm around her shoulders, both of them laughing at something. Another of Ryan asleep on their old couch, a textbook on his chest, exhausted from studying. One of her wearing his jacket because she'd forgotten hers, drowning in fabric and smiling. She found a birthday card he'd given her. Inside, in his careful handwriting, to the woman who makes every day better just by existing. I love you more than words can say. Always, Ryan, always. What a joke that had turned out to be. Lily was still sitting on the floor surrounded by memories when she heard Sophie crying through the baby monitor. But before she could stand, she heard Ryan's voice. Hey, sweetheart. Daddy's here. Bad dream? Lily froze. Ryan had a key for emergencies, but he'd never just let himself in before. She heard him moving around Sophie's room. The creak of the rocking chair, his voice humming that lullaby her grandmother used to sing. She should have gone in there, should have told him she could handle it. Instead, she sat in the hallway outside Sophie's room, listening to him soothe their daughter back to sleep. Your mama's so strong, Ryan was saying softly. Strongest person I know. She's going to give you such a good life, princess. Better than I ever could, probably. She doesn't need anyone, not even me. His voice cracked on those last words, and Lily felt something break inside her chest. But I need you both. Ryan continued, barely above a whisper. I need you so much it hurts, and I don't know how to watch you leave again. Lily stood up before she could stop herself and pushed open the door. Ryan looked up, startled, and she saw tears on his face. I heard Sophie crying on the monitor in my house, he explained quickly. I thought you might be asleep, so I came to check. I'm sorry, I should have called first. You need us, Lily said. Ryan stood carefully, Sophie asleep against his shoulder. Lily, don't, I shouldn't have said that. You're doing what's right for you and Sophie. What if it's not right? The words tumbled out before she could stop them. What if I'm just running again because I'm scared? Scared of what? Of this, of us. Of the fact that every time I look at you, I remember why I loved you, and it terrifies me because what if I mess it up again? What if I hear something wrong or make the wrong assumption and we end up right back where we started? Ryan moved closer, his free hand reaching up to cup her face. Then we talk. We ask questions instead of running. We trust each other enough to be honest even when it's hard. I don't know if I can do that, Lily whispered. Yes, you can. You're the bravest person I know, Lily. You survived on your own, kept our daughter safe through everything. If you can do all that, you can trust me. I kept her from you for 3 months. I kept you from watching her grow, from being there when she was born. How can you forgive that? Because I understand why you did it, Ryan said simply. Because you thought you were protecting yourself and her. Because you're human and you made a mistake just like I made a mistake not being clearer about my feelings back then. Lily felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I still have the ring. The one you gave back to me. I've been carrying it in my pocket every day like some kind of talisman. Good, Ryan said. Don't lose it. You're going to need it. For what? For when you're ready to believe in us again? For when you're ready to stop running and start building something real? Sophie stirred against Ryan's shoulder, making a little sound, and they both looked at her. Their daughter, their miracle, the one good thing that came from all the pain and mistakes. I don't want to move, Lily admitted. I've been packing boxes and hating every second of it because this place, this little guest house, it started to feel like home. Not because of the house, but because you're here. Then don't move, Ryan said. Or better yet, move into the main house with me. All of us together like a real family, and that's crazy. We've only been back in each other's lives for 6 months. I've loved you for 3 years, Ryan countered. I waited 2 years hoping you'd come back. I think I've been patient enough. Lily laughed through her tears. You're not supposed to give ultimatums. That's not how this works. I'm not giving an ultimatum. I'm giving you a choice. Keep being scared and move out, or trust me and stay. Either way, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here loving you and Sophie, whether you're in the guest house or across town or on the other side of the world. That's not fair, Lily said. I know. Nothing about us has ever been fair. He kissed her forehead gently, carefully, like she was something precious. But I'm done letting fear make our decisions. Sophie woke up fully then, looking between her parents with curious eyes. She reached for Lily and Ryan transferred her over carefully. The three of them stood there in the soft glow of the nightlight, a family that had been broken and was slowly, carefully, putting itself back together. I'll cancel the lease, Lily said quietly, on the apartment. But we're taking this slow, okay? No rushing. As slow as you need, Ryan agreed. And if I get scared again, if I start to run, you have to promise to stop me, to make me talk instead of letting me disappear. I promise. Lily looked down at the simple gold band she'd been carrying in her pocket for months. She slipped it onto her finger and it fit perfectly, just like it always had. This doesn't mean we're getting married again, she said quickly. Ryan smiled. Really smiled. For the first time in weeks. Not yet, but we will be. When you're ready. You're very confident. I'm very in love, he corrected. There's a difference. And standing there in their daughter's nursery, surrounded by the life they'd almost lost, Lily finally let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work after all.